Hello, my name is Justin Bright. Welcome to Kerbal Space Program version 1.7.3 in my next small step realism overhaul RP-1 playthrough. And in the last episode, I made the big step to upgrade to Kerbalism, or to add Kerbalism to my install, which, like I said, the developers do not recommend adding that to your install when it is in flight, but, you know, I did it anyways. I figure that the low number of things that I have, well, the zero number of things that I have in orbit, and the fact that everything that I have is just on the ground or being built, meant that I was at fairly low risk, and so far it seems to be correct. Like I mentioned before, I'm going to just go ahead and restart if I absolutely need to, if this whole thing craps out, but I haven't found any evidence that that is going to happen, so we are just going to keep on moving forward. We have just completed our last test of all the components that we need for our orbital launch, and we are doing last-minute tweaks to make sure that this is everything that we need to satisfy all these contracts. Alright, so just a brief stopover in the VAB to take a look at what I'm calling the Explorer 2, which is everything that that old rocket was and more. But actually, and less, because it is using all of the same major parts, the same engines, the same configuration of using an A series and then two Aerobes, but it's using a couple different procedural parts. So it's using an actual procedural avionics to make use of the latest and greatest in avionics technology that we have unlocked. For example, we have here this is an there is avionics built into this nose cone, basically, and that is a much less mass, much lower mass than the other configuration was, and it actually has enough avionics capability to power the whole darn thing. So we are also only using the one, so we are using this one piece, which is 400 kilograms, instead of the A4 guidance unit, which is 600 kilograms, and then the Able Avionics package, which is another 140 kilograms. So yeah, pretty significant mass savings there, and it also is more capable. So kind of a no-brainer when it comes to that. Finally, the payload is a lot lighter. So this is once again a procedural avionics nose cone that I've built, and it is 17 kilograms compared to the Aerobee, which was 60 or so, plus the weight of the nose cone. So this is dramatically lighter than the telemetry unit was, and it's more capable, and. So yeah, it's a pretty big upgrade, and this is the lesson, is shave down your payloads as much as you possibly can. Use the latest technology, apply those updates, use the best tanks that you can, the best avionics that you can. Procedural does get to be better than these stock parts pretty darn quickly, as it turns out. And so yeah, with all of those upgrades, plus I'm adding antennas, plus I've added solar panels, plus there's more science experiments in here, and I still get another 1,000 meters per second of delta V. So, this is what I am going to be hoping very much, that this is going to be my successful orbital class rocket. You'll see that the ignition failure rate has gone down by almost 10% because of that previous test, so fingers sincerely crossed that this is the one that does it for us. Alright, and one of the last major milestones before we get orbital, we have just finished satellite era science, right on time. It looks like Kerbalism has given us a new advanced biological capsule, which is exciting. I like more experiments. We'll be able to do more with that a little bit later on, but the important thing that we want to look at now is this Geiger Molar counter. This is going to let us do cosmic ray science, which is the very specific science that the first scientific satellite contract requires us to use. So we finally have everything that we need. We definitely want all of this science equipment, so that's going to let us do all kinds of cool stuff in the future. But for now, all we're focused on is getting this Geiger Molar counter on the Explorer 2 and getting it orbital. Fingers crossed. All right, we popped the bottom of this avionics pod open, and we can see that we already have our ion mass spectrometer underneath here. Adding on this Geiger Molar counter, I hope, is not too much of a increase in the mass that this has to bear. But yeah, we're just going to clip this inside just like we do the other stuff, because I don't know, that seems to be the way of things, is to put your modules inside just for aerodynamics purposes. Someday we will have a fairing, but that is not this day. I just pressed the H button, which moved it to center horizontally. I'm not sure on which axis that is centered, but something I want to check. Now that that's done, let's just pull it out so it's just this rocket alone. I want to see the maximum amount, and I just want to check the thrust on this to make sure that there's no torque, to make sure it's actually centered. And it looks like it is, so that's good. And that brings us down to just over 10,000 meters per second of delta V, which should, in theory, be enough. So let's go ahead and check our staging. We got the engine, then that, our service module, second stage, upper stage. Okay, so that should do it. We're gonna save that vessel, and here we go. All right, here we have Explorer 2 sitting on the pad, and I guess maybe don't talk too much about it because we still need to get it off this pad. So 3, 2, 1. Ignition failure. No. Okay. All right. So that's not great, but we should be able to roll this back and give this another shot without wasting too much time. Whew, so yeah, this is scary stuff. All right, so it looks like it's going to take 5 days to recover our Explorer 2, and then we have another one building. We have about 170 days left before the contracts expire, and so we'll have 2 shots at this. Well, I guess this will be 3 shots at this. That's pretty devastating that this has failed, but this could have been a lot worse. Like, an engine ignition failure on the pad is really not as bad as this could be. All right, 5 days to roll back, and then 5 days to roll out once again, and hopefully this still works properly. Yep, looks like it's got an ignition remaining and all that, so that's good. 3, 2, 1. Ignition. Hey, we have thrust. All right, checking staging. Okay, 3, 2, 1, release. And begins to rise into the air on the back of our Redstone rocket. Fabulous. Yeah, so this is a more, well, it's actually not much different at all, but it's just a better controlled Redstone booster that is able to control right off of the pad. So we have a couple different objectives that we want to get to with this launch. So step 1, we want to get to a periapsis of 300 kilometers, because we have first artificial satellite only needs us to get to 150. And the first scientific satellite wants us to get between 200 and 900. So 300 kilometers is what it is, and that is a great place for us to get started. All right, slowly rising. Palms are sweating a little bit because this is not the absolute last chance. We have some last-ditch efforts that we could do to try to salvage this, but this makes or breaks the program right here. This. Oh, speaking of making or breaking the program, while we're doing that, let's try to also make sure that we are doing science. Science is very important. Okay, cool. So yeah, science is now running, and we are rising up, and I am just kind of manually toggling us down. There's other ways that we could be doing this gravity turn, but I'm just not that stressed about it. We want to go a little bit higher than normal. We want to get to 300 kilometers at least. So that's kind of what I'm aiming for. So we are going to be pushing a little bit higher rather than leveling off right away. All right, another 30 seconds of thrust on our Redstone rocket, and we seem to be going pretty well so far. I'm pretty damn happy with the performance. Hopefully there's no transient failure right here at the end. That would be pretty devastating. But yeah, we are 220, 240, 260, 280, 300 kilometer apoapsis, and we're just going to let it run a little bit above that. Fabulous. Our targeted apoapsis is 345 kilometers. Awesome. So I'm going to turn down the throttle, turn on RCS, and we are just about out of the atmosphere already, so I can separate this, say farewell to our redstone booster heading back down towards the Earth. And this is our new control module, service module, whatever you want to call it, that is going to help guide us into orbit. It has the same basic principles as the one that I used before, where it has just it has two rear-facing nozzles on a 138 223 Newton RCS, and then a bunch of pairs of left and right facing attitude jets of a smaller class that it can use to orient itself in space. So in thinking about this maneuver, we don't have a maneuver planner, we can't plan a burn, but we do know that we need to be facing just a little bit below the horizon, just like we did before with Explorer 1. What we want to do is we want to fire this off a little bit earlier than halfway, because in my testing that's been necessary to get the proper trajectory, to keep the periapsis where it is, and also to increase the apoapsis to arbitrarily high, which is what we want. So yeah, we are all set up for that. In about 1 minute we are going to start executing this burn. And yeah, so I guess I can tell you a little bit about Explorer 1, which is what we are emulating with this satellite, and even with the shape of it a little bit. Explorer 1 being the first satellite launched by the United States. And I'm going to start my rotation, move myself up just slightly, because yeah, I just want to be rotating along this axis to make sure that we have that control that we need. And we are going to cut it there. Okay. So yeah, we are rotating, and that should keep us stable. We are going to launch in about 10 more seconds, I think. That's about what I've found to be useful in my testing. So I'm warming up the thrusters, and the ullage is prepared, and go. Awesome. So yeah. Explorer 1, the first satellite launched by the United States, and it was one of the first satellites that had a payload, like an actual payload, other than just, hey, I got a thing into orbit. Isn't that fantastic? And, you know, it is fantastic. That's a really wonderful thing, to be able to get something into orbit at all, let alone something that can do a thing. But we have antennas. We have scientific payloads on this. We are getting science that is going to be coming back home that our scientists can start using, which is just absolutely fantastic. But this was not the first satellite that was in space. That was obviously Sputnik 1. It wasn't even the first satellite that had a payload. That was Sputnik 2, appropriately named, I suppose. But yeah, this was when we really joined the space race and people started to sit up and take notice. And we fired off our second Aero B. We are still, you'll notice that we are still pretty much on track as far as facing the same direction that we started in, which is, you know, really, really good. But yeah, so now we have another 40 seconds of this burning, and hopefully it goes pretty well. We've used so many of these that they have a fairly low failure rate, which is phenomenal. I'm really happy about that and the way that that has come together. So yeah, I'm fairly hopeful, fairly confident that my flight skills and this new design is going to get us into orbit and really kick this career mode into proper gear in flying orbital rockets and doing all the really cool stuff. Just get rid of the UI just for a second to take a beautiful, beautiful screenshot of this, because this is a very lovely thing with the new... Whoa, and with that flippy flop, I think that is it for us. Boom! Did we do it? Did we do it, guys? It's so exciting. Okay, yeah, we are checking stable orbit for first solar satellite. We are checking stable orbit for first artificial satellite. We are checking stable orbit for the first scientific satellite, but this is going to be a trickier one because this, we have to transmit science and we have to stay in this orbit for 2 hours and then still have electric charge. So that is why I wanted to make sure that we had these solar panels on here, and I'm very much hoping that they are going to get enough sunlight to keep this vessel powered for all of this time. We may even shut down some of our experiments to make sure that we minimize the power consumption. So let's take a look. While we're waiting for all of this stuff to finish, let's take a look at... Oh, interesting. So yeah, this has 15% average solar panel exposure, but it looks like based on what we have here in this supplies column, electric charge supplies 22 hours, so we should have enough electric charge based on even this small amount that we're getting to be able to last the 2 hours that we need, which is super duper exciting. All right, just a couple more seconds until hopefully these contracts finish and we will be officially in space, in orbit. There it is. There it is. First artificial satellite. Congratulations on placing Earth's first artificial satellite in orbit. First solar-powered satellite. This is an important step in increasing the usefulness of our satellites in orbit. I should definitely say so. All right, so as we're talking a little bit about this, let's talk more about Kerbalism. So with transmission, as I mentioned, it takes time to do science. It also takes time to transmit the science down. So you can see that we're transmitting 2 science experiments at 2 bytes per second. So not a whole lot of speed there, or is that bits per second? I don't actually know. But yeah, so it's going to be sending this stuff down. We are acquiring... I wonder how much we're getting at a time. And the connection timed out because we are now over the ocean. So yeah, this is something that I think we can safely leave running for 2 hours. Ew. And then we'll see. So we have a minimum apogee of 1,500 kilometers, which we have, and a minimum perigee of 2 to 900. So it looks like we're there, but we just have to keep this orbit stable for 2 hours. Okay, so I'm just terrified because this contract failing would break our career right here and now. So yeah, I guess we'll see in 2 hours how this is going. All right, just 5 seconds until we hit this 2-hour stable orbit marker. And orbit confirmed. Now we just need to transmit cosmic ray science. So I don't actually know how long that's going to take, interestingly enough. So we have on here the, let's go to data, cosmic ray science that we are in fact transmitting. So we've got some data acquired and it appears to be going, which is good. It's flagged for transmission. It's collecting, but it's going to take a long time for it to finish, I guess. So yeah, I'm not sure if there's anything else that we can do. There's nothing else up here for us, as far as I can tell. We have, good 15% solar panel average exposure. We've transmitted home 8 credits of science already, fantastic, and we've completed a couple extra contracts as we swung up to the apoapsis of our orbit. Uncrewed altitude record of 900,001, 1,000 kilometers and 2,000 kilometers, which got us a bunch more money as well. So yeah, hopefully that this is going to give us that last contract that we need, that science contract. I don't know when or if that's going to finish or if there's something that I'm doing wrong. I'm pretty sure I'm using the correct experiment, the cosmic ray science, I'm fairly certain. Yeah, cosmic ray science is running. Info is, it's going to take a long time. It's a 90-day experiment, so hopefully between now and 90 days from now, this is able to actually get us this science, or it may be the kind of thing where we have to do this multiple times and send up a bunch of satellites to hopefully acquire this bit here. So yeah, let's move on for now and see what else we can do. So we've come home to 250,000 funds and 12 science, which is just lovely. That's going to be able to advance us quite a bit. But yeah, I don't see any reason not to build another explorer to send that up. Which, one last little factoid is the cosmic ray experiment was the exact one that was on Explorer 1. Like, that was the science experiment that Explorer 1 was sent up to do. So that makes perfect sense why that is the scientific contract. Alright, so we've gotten an extra upgrade point, which is fabulous. I think there's every reason we should put that into our VAB to make our satellites a little bit easier to create. And let's buy a couple of points. Let's buy, I don't know, 5 points, I think, and put that all into building rockets, and then 1 into building more R&D, because I like the symmetry of having 20 and 20. That gets us our next Explorer rocket done in just 90 days, which is fantastic, because I am still really quite concerned about getting this contract complete. So let's take a look at some of our next objectives. You'll notice that sounding rocket contracts are now lost to us entirely. We can never launch another one of these because we have now proven to be bigger and better than that. That is all of our milestones for now, except for our first scientific satellite, which we are just still hoping to complete. As far as early satellite contracts, all of a sudden we have all kinds of interesting new things that we can do. We have the first communication satellite that we can put up, which is a ComSat payload contract. There's no actual communication satellite requirements other than putting it in a very particular orbit with a very particular payload. Like, there's no part, is what I was trying to say. Some atmospheric analysis, which is running certain experiments at various altitudes. Oh, this could be considered the very first weather satellite. Yeah, that makes sense. It opens up new weather satellite opportunities. Cool, cool, cool. Some of these, I think, are unlocks that lead to repeatable things. We need a polar orbit, which we just didn't do because I didn't want to chance not getting into orbit, because it was still pretty close by my estimation. Geostationary satellites, that requires a level of precision that I do not think we have at this stage, and a navigation satellite, which is a NavSat payload contract, getting that into a very particular orbit. Yeah, so all of a sudden, now we're putting things into orbit all the time, and different things, useful things that are good not only for us, but also for all of humanity. All right. With a mission clock of 14 days, I think we can call this one sufficiently dead. The battery has failed on the... well, it has not failed. There has not been some event that has failed on the battery, don't get me wrong. But the battery is now empty, and the solar panels are no longer providing enough power to turn this probe back on, so the Explorer 2 is dead in orbit. It has been 14 days until it met its final demise, so it actually lasted a really long time, and transmitted a decent amount of science that entire while. However, it did not actually finish this contract, and I discovered that's because it was never going to finish the contract. At least it was not going to finish the contract until it had done all 90 days worth of science. From the RP-1 Discord, I can surmise that this is a hole in the Kerbalism implementation, or the realism overhaul version of Kerbalism as it applies to RP-1. So, as weird as it feels to do this, we are going to be going into the cheat menu for contracts, active contracts, and we are going to complete this contract because we have done what we were asked to do. The implementation of this contract said we were to survive in orbit for 120 minutes and then transmit science. We did it for 14 days, so we are going to call this completed. And there we go, contract complete. First scientific satellite. The satellite you sent into orbit has returned extremely valuable data that has proven the existence of the Van Allen radiation belts, which is exactly what Explorer 1 did and what we also did, because Kerbalism deals with radiation. Ooh, spooky stuff. But yeah, so Explorer 1 really did go into the Van Allen radiation belts entirely accidentally without realizing they were there, and discovered what is an incredibly important bit of the physics around about Earth's orbital atmosphere. And so I would just like to state that we did this in 1956. So we did this fully 2 years before Explorer 1 actually launched. So for all that I was complaining about being stuck forever in the sounding rocket phase, we were still ahead of that major milestone. So that's fantastic. I'm super excited to go forward, but that is where we are with our scientific satellite. Alright, so I think that's probably a good place to call this episode complete. We have gotten into orbit. We have gotten our first scientific satellite and solar-powered satellite sending down science, and that really opens up a tremendous number of opportunities. So there's going to be a lot of really cool stuff going forward, and I'm also tinkering around with my install a little bit more. You've seen that I've added Kerbalism. I'm also thinking about making the jump to 1.8.1, which is also highly not recommended and will probably break your save. So don't try this at home. Make a lot of backups. And one other thing, I do want to apologize for the terrible sound quality. I have no idea what happened this episode, but I'm really sorry that it sounded so atrocious. I must have had my microphone messed up. I don't know what happened. But anyways, let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Like and subscribe and all that, and I will see you all next time.